Redline Logbook here for the Grim Man Seed of Destruction arc, and we're starting off with learning what happened to Bookman and Robbie, and they were captured by the Noah. Shuriel is currently interrogating Bookman, questioning what is the connection to the 14th and the Earl, and why does the Earl want to protect him? Why were they ordered to protect him when the smart thing to do right now is to kill the 14th? And Bookman's response is, I don't know. But Shuriel knows that Bookman is lying because apparently Bookman, 35 years ago, had a connection to all of the Noah in their previous reincarnation. The problem is, he's a Bookman, and so his job isn't to reveal secrets, it's just to collect them. And Shuriel is getting real pissed off that Bookman will not talk. And so they're resorting to violence to get Bookman to talk. The Noah called Fiddler sticks out his tongue, and it is long with a bunch of eyeballs on it. And apparently these eyeballs pop off, and they embed themselves into people. They're basically parasites that can kill anyone when activated. There's currently one inside of both Choju, which is why he was sick in the last arc, and also Robbie right now. The thing is, Bookman doesn't really care about Choju. He doesn't care about anyone except for himself and Robbie because they're both Bookmen. Especially Robbie because he is so old, Bookman, that he doesn't have time to train a replacement again. So if Robbie dies right now, the mission of the Bookman that's been going on for centuries, if not thousands of years, will be a failure. Back at the Order, everyone is currently recovering from all of their injuries with the last battle with the Noah. At the same time, there's currently an investigation being done by headquarters. Lincoln is remembering what conversation he had with Alan as he was arresting him, and how Alan was regretful and sorry towards Tsuga, the third that he was trying to save, but Link stopped him, thinking that he was trying to murder him. Bad time to be thinking about this because he's currently in the middle of giving a report to headquarters, and they're all impatient to hear what's going on. Basically, there have been no updates on the location of Kanda, and Alan Walker is refusing to speak where he sent them. In fact, he's even refusing to eat in case there's truth serum been poured into his food. As such, the entire situation is a failure on the Order's part. The head bishop at the meeting is currently saying that if Alan Walker refuses to talk through regular methods, then they have no choice but to get more violent with him. That is when Zeus steps forward and says, Khan is actually already dead, there's no point in going looking for his corpse. And to prove that Khan is actually dead is that he presents Khan's sword, and he reveals the innocence has turned solid and blocky, showing that it no longer has a connection to its previous owner, Kanda. The head priest basically tells him to shut up. It's clear this has nothing to do with actually finding Kanda, more to do with breaking Alan, who everyone sees as the 14th. A giant feast is made for everyone that was involved in all battlefields to eat together. Obviously, Lin Lee and a few other extras aren't in the mood to eat, but River, Johnny, and the rest of the science team convince them to start eating and shoving as much food in their faces as possible because they need to heal up. This is what's best to do right now. You can't just not eat. The science team then starts arguing and discussing ways to remove the 14th from Alan to save everyone, and eventually this leads to someone in the cafeteria to throw food at them. It ends up hitting Johnny and also a priest walking by. Now, even though they weren't the ones who threw the food, the science team understands that the whole reason why they just got attacked was because they're defending Alan, who is a Noah. And so they actually try to apologize to the priest that just happened to be walking by. And he's like, oh no, it's fine. I wasn't planning on eating anyway, I was just walking through. After he cleans himself off, he then looks at the science team and says, don't worry, Alan won't be executed. And then he smiles at them and just walks away, and they're like, who was that guy? Big Timmy then gets a weird feeling when he sees the priest, but he can't really put it into words, and so he just brushes it off. Back in his prison cell, Link kicks in Alan's door, walks over to him, and then just places a hot bowl against Alan's face. This finally snaps Alan back into reality. Eat this, there's no truth serum in it, you can tell because it's made from Chef Jerry himself. And when Alan opens up the bowl, it's porridge, and written in food is, Leverly is an idiot. Leverly is Cromwell's surname, so basically it's Jerry's way of saying no one touched this food but me. It's safe to eat, and Alan also trusts Link because he's the one who carried the food in, so he finally is able to eat after, 2-3 days. Alan finally then apologizes to Link for attacking him earlier, and Link's only response is, that's it? After all this time refusing to talk to me, that's the first thing you say? That's not the thing that Link has cared about this entire time. What he cared about were his friends. He then explains to Alan that him and the rest of the third generations were all orphaned at the exact same time, and they basically lived in the streets together until eventually the church took them in. Link also blames himself for what happened to all of his friends, because he was the one who gave Cromwell the piece of the egg. Hearing all that, Alan then regrets he didn't try to become better friends with the Thirds, because he feels like he would have liked them. And Alan also thinks to himself maybe he should learn more about the 14th. I mean, he was Mana's little brother. Why did he betray the Noah? Why is he trying to become the new Earl? He really just doesn't understand. And as he's thinking that, all of a sudden, his skin turns gray and he starts to convulse. That's when that priest from earlier walks into the room and he tells Link, oh, Alan is slowly being consumed by the 14th. He's going to be gone soon. And obviously everyone's worried about Alan, especially the heart. And that's when the priest's hand begins to transform into innocence. The activation of this priest's innocence and about to attack Alan actually causes the Millennium Earl to awaken from his slumber and be like, the 14th is in danger. The priest then stabs Alan through the chest with his innocence, and all of a sudden these feather wing things start sprouting, and Alan's screaming in pain and agony. Link then goes, who the hell are you? And tries to stop him, but the priest is able to move at insane speed, get behind Link, puts his hands over his eyes, and just like before, these feather wing things start to sprout from Link's eyes. The priest then tells Link to be a good boy because he doesn't want McCullen to notice just yet, and that he's going to put him to sleep, and when he wakes up, he won't remember anything. And we actually get a scene from the hallway that the priest came through, and literally everyone that was posted there to guard Alan went through the same experience of having those feather things grow from their eyes and knock them unconscious. Now, Alan is in a state of freaking out because of the 14th Awakening, on top of the fact he just got stabbed, and so he isn't really in control of himself. All he sees is Link being attacked, and so he uses his innocence to attack the priest and actually stab him straight to the brain. Of course, Alan's never killed anyone before, so he starts freaking out because he just, murdered someone. Of course, this wouldn't be considered murder. It's his self-defense, but to Alan, killing someone is still killing someone. The priest then, unaffected, starts to walk towards Alan, allowing Alan's innocence to continuously rip through his head, making a bigger and bigger hole, until he's standing right in front of Alan. He then grabs onto Alan and says, you don't have to worry. You're just going to become a part of me. And as this guy is absorbing Alan then gets flashes of the priest's memories where he sees this is the guy that killed his master. And right before Alan is fully absorbed into this priest, that is when Rhode's door appears, pops out both Rhode and Tiki Meek, and Tiki Meek just bodies this dude. And he declares he's been searching for him for the last 7,000 years. Rhode runs over to Alan, jumps on him, hugs him, tries to calm him down because he's freaking out. Tiki Meek is actually surprised that Alan didn't immediately start screaming his name, because anytime the two see each other, Alan goes on a bloodlusting frenzy trying to kill him. Well, kill the no inside of him. He doesn't actually want to kill Tiki Meek himself. Alan slowly calms down, that is until he sees the priest start courting in all kinds of weird ways, and he goes, wait, this guy's compatible with innocence? He's an exorcist? And Tiki Meek's like, no, he's not. This man is neither human nor an exorcist. What he is an independent innocence whose sole purpose is to protect the heart. After this thing is done contorting, it then transforms into its true form, which is a monstrous humanoid thing with basically no features except for mouth and eyes. It is referred to as Apocryphos. Okay, so for what Apocryphos is, in the real world, are a series of books and notations that were kept out of the Bible because they weren't seen as legitimate enough by the church. Basically, the vast majority of the Bible is just the history of the Jews, and then after that, the New Testament is Jesus. And so there are actual other records outside of the Christian ones that show that this is what happened. The Apocryphos files are all things that could not be second cited by other sources, and so the church says they're probably not real. We're just going to throw them out. So basically, the best way to put what this thing is that it's a secret, and it's also heresy at the same time. It is a secret heresy within the church, within innocence. Rhode then says, Apocryphos, after 7,000 years, we finally have a clue to the heart. And that is when Apocryphos says, clue? Oh no, number 4. He actually seems to know the number order of all of the Noah, which I think is funny. No. To you, Noah, I am the Grim Reaper. Tiki Meek and Apocryphos then start duking it out, and Apocryphos is just kicking Tiki Meek's ass. Apocryphos basically compares all of their innocence that Tiki Meek has destroyed up to this point as inexperienced children, and that he's nothing like them. Alan also attacks Apocryphos because he killed his master and he wants his revenge. But Apocryphos' response to that is, I don't know why you're so mad at me. That man was going to sacrifice you for the 14th. Kind of acting like Alan should be grateful that he killed Cross for him, but that's just obviously ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, Crown Clown starts to act up, starts to turn into those feather things again, and won't respond to Alan's commands. And Apocryphos' response is very simple. Innocence doesn't work on me. Plus, I can control your innocence. Apocryphos then grabs onto Alan again, tries to absorb him again, and tells Alan that his will is greater and he can suppress the 14th. And so if Alan allows himself to be absorbed, then this is the best way to stop the 14th. He's helping Alan. Once again, no. Apocalypse's way of thinking is very twisted, very utilitarian. Alan then says that the idea of ever fusing with him just makes him want to puke. And this seems to piss off Apocrypha, where he actually gets angry enough to actually strike Alan. Rhodes takes the blow for Alan. Apocrypha then goes in for a second attack, but then he's bound by Link. He's actually surprised that Link is still conscious. He hadn't finished him off just yet. That is when Link deactivates Tincampy's bindings and orders him to save Alan. After Tincampy then swallows both Rhodes and Alan, Link then activates an explosion that blasts Tincampy out of the building completely, where they're then saved by Tiki Meek, who rushes to save them. On the other hand, this leaves Link in the room with Apocrypha by himself. Apocrypha then shows one last bit of respect towards Link for being able to do all that, and he also sends out a psychic message to Alan declaring that he's not going to let him run away. Obviously, everyone saw Alan Walker get thrown out of the building with Tincampy, and so the assumption is he's trying to escape with the Noah. An alarm is sent off to the entire base to everyone, declaring that Alan Walker is now the enemy, and he will now, from this day forward, be considered a Noah. Lindley, thanks to her dark boots, is the first one to make it out of the building, starts running towards Alan. She's freaking out because she knows Alan would never betray them. He would never join the Noah, which means the thought going through her head at this moment is probably that the 14th has taken over, and she's lost her friend. Conway's doing his job as the leader. He declares that Alan must be captured at all costs. They don't have to focus on the other Noah as long as they get their hands on Alan. An argument then spreads throughout the entire base, where there's some accusing Alan of finally betraying them and joining the Noah, while others are absolutely pissed off they would even accuse Alan of that. After Apocrypha is done beating Link to near death, he then declares that he must go save Alan. Once again, showing just how twisted his mindset really is. A bunch of security guards eventually get to the prison cell where Alan was at. They find Link's body, and they're all trying to basically get control of the scene when McCullen shows up and just orders everyone out. Zoe's also on the scene. He tells McCullen that Link is actually still alive, but McCullen's response is to everyone else, Link is dead, secure the area, and go. Those who remain are Link, obviously, because he's bleeding to death, McCullen, Zoe, Rennie, and Bach. Rennie then asked if it appeared, and McCullen's response is, it most likely did. You should be careful, Rennie. Which means that these two know that Apocrypha exists, and not just that, but it apparently wants to go after Rennie for some reason. We don't really get much of an explanation going forward. Instead, McCullen gets on all fours and then begs Zoe to save Link's life, declaring that he needs Link. He needs him to save Alan and the 14th. That's when Zoe realizes that McCullen most likely, at some point in time, made a deal with the 14th. Yeah, so there's a lot of secrets being held with the characters in this room at this moment. Whatever it is, we don't get an explanation. Instead, we jump over to where Alan's at. Tiki Mika then trying to convince Alan to come with them, and Alan's response is, no, I am an exorcist. I have no interest in joining you. You must be out of your mind. As that's happening, Alan's innocence once again turns into those feather things. He starts freaking out. And Timmy's like, see, you have to come with us. You have no choice. And Alan's like, no, don't touch me. Stay away. And Apocrypha is just slowly getting closer as he senses Alan's innocence. TB then says, here, I'll just cut it off. And he tries to cut off Alan's arm, but obviously Alan just pushes him away. And TB's like, are you stupid or something? Did that thing, Apocrypha, look like pure innocence to you? That thing's a monster. And Alan agrees, but he's also like, you're also a monster. Look what you Noah have done. And TB is like, well, you got me there. But here's the thing, Alan. You have both innocence and a Noah inside of you. So wouldn't that make you the most grotesque thing around? That's when we hear explosions and all kinds of stuff happening all over the island as they're all searching for Alan, but they can't get anywhere near because barriers and such keep popping up. And the reason for this is because the thirds have fully become Noah puppets and are currently just holding off all the other exorcists. TB then tells Alan, you know what, make whatever decision you want, I won't stop you. And then he turns to Apocrypha and he starts to fight him, while Alan tries to figure out what to do, and he doesn't know what to do. Tiki Beak is technically right, he does have two separate monsters inside of him, and no matter where he goes or what he does, he seems to cause harm to the people around him, and so he's just broken at this point, and he just wants to just give up. Rhodes then says, just keep walking, and this snaps Alan back into reality. And Rhodes then explains that Nia told Mana that he should just keep walking. That's how he'll survive. Everything that Nia did that went against the Millennium Earl and the rest of the Noah, he did for Mana. And she tells Alan, but that's supposed to be a secret. And as she says that, her body just disappears. Alan finally makes his decision that he isn't going back to the Order, but he isn't going with the Noah either. He'll just keep walking, as he always has. He then asks Tincampy to turn tiny again, jumps onto his head, and he opens the gate to the Ark one last time. Lena Lee finally catches up to him, at that moment as he's about to step through the door. She then says in a very shaky, broken voice, "You'll get in trouble if you use the gate without permission." And Alan's like, "I know." Lindley tells him if he really leaves now, they'll have to fight each other next time they see each other. And Alan's like, "I know. It's okay, you can just kick me if you need to." She then starts to get pissed off that he's even joking at a time like this. He then gets serious, hugs her, and tells her that he'll always be an exorcist, and the Order and everyone will always be his home. And those are his last words as he steps through the arc and disappears. Next thing we see is a flashback involving Alan as a child with Cross and some old woman and this old woman's son who has some kind of mental issues. It seems to take place right after Mana died and Cross took in Alan. They're basically saying goodbye as the two are leaving, and the old lady refers to Alan as Alan Walker. And Alan's like, "Wait, no, you can't call me that. That Walker was Mana's name, and we weren't actually family, so it would be wrong of me to take." He wants to take Mana's name, but he doesn't feel like he deserves it. But that's when Cross says, "It's a fine name, Alan Walker." And that's when everyone else agrees with it as well. And so Alan finally accepts the fact that he was Mana's son. And then we get an even further continuation of this flashback, but even further back in time when Cross first brought Alan to this old woman and her son. And they basically were doing everything in their power to keep Alan alive. So this woman, she's a supporter of Cross directly, but she does not like the 14th. And she understands that Alan is in fact the host for the 14th, so she's doing her job helping Cross. But Cross is throwing an attitude because Alan, after Mana's death and basically having to exorcise him, is refusing to eat. He's refusing to move from his spot in the bed where he constantly pisses and shits himself. He's basically become a zombie child, and Cross doesn't know what to do. And at a certain point, he's beginning to get fed up with him. And the old woman's like, "You spent 30 years looking for the host of the 14th, and you're just going to let him die?" Cross doesn't want to admit that the old lady's right. So instead, he just gets mad about the fact that a 10-year-old boy is the host for the 14th, which doesn't make any sense because, as it was said before, Neil, the 14th, died 30 years ago, and he transferred his memories 30 years ago. It had to have been. So how is this small child be the host? And it becomes quite clear to the old lady that what Cross is really trying to say is he wished that it was a full-grown man who was also a bastard, so this way he wouldn't have to feel guilty about the 14th taking over. The old lady's son then begins to show Cross how to take care of a child, basically. How to cook food, how to wash laundry, and basically do day-to-day essentials to keep someone alive. But no matter how many days pass by, Alan continues to just stare into the void. Eventually, he then says to Alan, "Remember what Mana always says? That you shouldn't stand still, that you should just keep walking." And this must have worked because it finally got Alan to start speaking. And when he tells this news to the old lady, she's like, "Oh, that's great. Let's drink together, a celebration." But then she looks at Cross's face and she sees how downturned he is. And he explains that Alan isn't talking like Alan. He's talking like Mana. He's behaving, and his mannerisms have become that of Mana's. And he knows the difference between Mana and Alan because he's been watching them from a distance for years now. And Alan is this angry, scrappy child who curses and is just kind of a brat. And Mana was this kind, gentle man who spoke very politely and formally, and he just showed the absolute love and respect he could for Alan and everyone around him. That's when the old lady says, "Well, isn't this okay anyway? He doesn't have to be himself. He just has to stay alive long enough for the 14th to swallow him up. And if being Mana's the way that keeps him alive, then I guess that works." The two, clearly sickened by this thought, decide to get drunk. That's when we come back to the present where the old lady and her son have been reminiscing about the past because they found Alan's old chest that had all of Mana's clown stuff in it. And at that moment, Alan shows up at their doorstep. He's invited in, and the old lady looks into Alan's eyes, and she gets a very happy, sad thought, which is Cross pretended and said that he didn't care about Alan, but the look in Alan's eyes is clear that Cross did care about him, and he did show him love. We shift over to the Noah, where Chivalry is currently freaking out by the fact that Road disappeared. Because, her dream probably got interrupted. She should be fine. I mean, we were fighting Apocryphos, so who knows what happened. But I'm sure Road is fine. Shirley doesn't seem to care. He is freaking out, and at a certain point, he turns his hatred towards Bookman, and then he demands, what relationship did Road and the 14th have that would lead to her to risk her life for him? Bookman is, of course, freaking out because he and Robbie should be out in the world, because right now this is the history that they should be recording. Apocrypha's loose, Alan Walker is running from the Order, everything is going to shit. This is something that he should be a part of, because that is the job of the Bookman. and he's stuck here. Shirley then continues to just scream at Bookman, asking the same question over and over again. What is Rhodes' connection to the 14th? Explain it now. And Bookman continues to ignore him until eventually Shirley gets so pissed off that he kicks Robbie into a wall and threatens to kill him if Bookman doesn't answer his questions. 3 months go by, and everything in the Black Order continues as is. All the extras are going on missions. They're having to do double the work because things seem to be speeding up in the world. Link has been declared dead, and basically things have gone back to a semi-normal after Alan Walker left. We get an update on Choju with the parasite still inside of him. It's basically hooked up to his heart, and at any moment he could be killed. Obviously he doesn't know this. In fact, no one knows this, other than the Noah, of course. And he's also apparently going on mission after mission to the point where he's being told he needs to, slow it down a bit and rest because he's stressing out his innocence. But he's like, no, it's fine. I can't sit still. I don't feel right if I'm just sitting around and not on a mission. The topic of Alan ends up getting brought up, and Choju's response is, as it always is, he does not like Alan. In fact, he hates him more than ever, and he has the insane desire to basically kill him at this point. Johnny's on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to Alan Walker. He is in full support of him, and for the last 3 months has been going through heavy training routine to get his body nice and strong, so this way he can actually join Alan. And once Johnny feels like he's ready to join Alan, he then asks River if he could resign from the science team and gives a bogus excuse. His parents have gone ill and he has to take over their business. And of course River just shot that down immediately, saying, no, you are not resigning. It's pretty obvious that you're planning on going wherever Alan is, and that is not happening either. We then jump over to France, where Lena Lee and Mary are apparently just finished up a mission. They're all covered in bruises and such, and they're on their way back to the Ark, but they decide to rest in the middle of town square just to relax. And Lena Lee then reveals something that she's had pent up for the last 3 months after Alan left, and that she feels like she abandoned Alan. Lena Lee, time and time again, has called people in the Order and other extras her family, her friends, and at this moment when Alan was going to leave forever, she feels like she betrayed that very idea of friendship, that very idea that they were comrades, as she picked the Order over Alan. Mary's response is that really so bad? You have so many bonds with other people in the Order, including your brother, after all. And this doesn't mean you've lost your bond with Alan. It just means you're apart at the moment. And he tells her that her bonds with Alan, with Bookman, with Robbie, and with Conda, even if they're separated, they'll always be there. They'll always be connected. And when you speak of the devil, he will appear. That's when Conda starts walking towards them. And you get to see just how kind of a man Mary really is. In fact, he's too kind. In service of the church, he has been blinded, almost died multiple times, was put on the verge of death, and was about to be used as an experiment in the Second Exodus Project. And we get to see him even lament his own existence sometimes, but never give up on it. But we've never seen him cry before. That is until he sees Conda return. A little bit out of joy, the fact that his friend has returned, but at the same time, Conda didn't have to return. He was free, and he chose to come back anyway. Obviously, they update Conda on everything that happened, and he's completely nonchalant about any of it. He just doesn't seem to care much. They go to the Asian branch instead of headquarters because, well, Zhu is dying, and in fact, all the leadership that they know of is there. Kamui, McCullen, Rivas, and Bach. And obviously, there's different reactions based on the leadership. Rivas is happy he's alive. Bach is also happy he's alive. Kamui touches him all over to make sure that he isn't a fake painting created by General Jefferson. And McCullen's like, almost dead, right? Where's his body? Still a prick. Obviously, Kamui tells him he isn't going to say shit about that. And McCullen just seems like, okay, well, I tried. When Zhu sees that Colin is there, he basically just starts revealing all of his sins, acknowledging that he committed all kinds of evil to Conda and to Alma. All the suffering, all the people that died, it's all his fault. Also, he can bring his family, the Chews, into higher status. And Conda's response isn't to forgive him, but basically say that, well, then I guess we're both going to hell. This actually makes Zeus smile at the idea that he'll pay for his sins. Zoe has been holding on to Mugen this entire time, even on his deathbed, and he decides to hand it over to Conda, who then activates it. At that moment, instead of turning into a sword like it always does, it liquefies, like what happened to Lena Lee's innocence. Before anyone can respond, Lena Lee then grabs onto Conda's innocence and then tells him he doesn't have to do this. The Order and the Innocents have taken everything from him. His life, his lover, his friendship, his past, everything. If he goes along with this, it'll just be an even greater sacrifice that he won't be able to escape this time. Kana doesn't even hesitate. He doesn't even respond to anything she said. His mind is made up. He's doing this not for the Order, but for Alan. And so he drinks the innocence out of Lena Lee's hand, obviously freaking everyone out because that was very inappropriate. Just like Lena Lee, 2 slits appear in his flesh, and his blood starts to spew out, but his are on his arms. And Kana's blood takes the shape of innocence, shows itself, and then forms into the weapon that would most suit Kanda, a sword. This arc then ends off with Alan's arm going nuts again, transforming into those feather wings, revealing that Apocalypse is closing in on him. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give a thumbs up so you enjoy more D. Gray Man and other anime things. Thank you and have a great day.